What's up everyone, James here, and I bring you Disney's Gargoyles, the true Season 3 of the show. Even if you've never watched the show, you can still enjoy this video because I'll be explaining everything. If you haven't seen my video on Gargoyles Dark Ages, the prequel to the Gargoyles show by Dynamite Entertainment, written by the creator of the show, Greg Weisman, it delivers their origins. You'll find a link to it right here, below the like button, and at the end of this video. And make sure you hit that like button. In that video, I mentioned the current Gargoyles run by Dynamite. If you want to think of it as seasons, that's basically the 4th season. So we have to cover this series from Slave Labor Comics, also written by Greg, that came out in the early 2000s before we get into the current run. If you're confused as to why I said this is the true Season 3 of Gargoyles, even though there is a Season 3 called Goliath Chronicles, it's because that season isn't considered canon. After the first episode, called The Journey, aired, ABC, aka Disney, had replaced Greg, the producers, the story editors, and most of the crew. Honestly, I didn't even bother watching it when I rewatched the entire show recently for that very reason. If Greg isn't a part of it, I'm not watching it. Anyways, with all of that out of the way, let's get into it. Okay, so this story opens with WVRN's news station program, Night Watch, interviewing residents of Manhattan shortly after this group, called the Hunters, blew up the Gargoyles' home, the Clock Tower, which was the central structure of the Manhattan Civic Center and where Detective Elisa Mazza's 23rd Precinct resided. The Hunters publicly framed the Gargoyles for being responsible for the bombing and revealed them to the world. Now, if you're asking how this happened, this takes place a week after the events of the final episode in Season 2, Hunter's Moon Part 3. The Gargoyles, aka the Manhattan Clan, in those series of episodes faced off against a family called the Canmores, gargoyle hunters called the Hunters. It was a trio of siblings, Jason, Robin, and John Canmore. The family's hatred for gargoyles is mostly towards and originated with Demona, whom they call the demon. Each generation of the Canmores has been hunting her for the last 1,000 years, because it all originated with their ancestor, King Duncan. And what's crazy about that is when I explored the royal family tree, I discovered that King Duncan is the grandson of Melcalvum II, who was the son of King Kenneth II, the same king the Gargoyles formed their first human gargoyle alliance with in Gargoyles Dark Ages. So the same line that befriended the Gargoyles long ago had become the same line that swore to hunt them. Now, how this vendetta originated with King Duncan was because his cousin, Macbeth, and Demona took him out. I'm going to cut away from the issue for right now and explain all of this. This is honestly going to be kind of a long explanation, and there will be a variety of explanations along the way on different characters and episodes throughout this video. I'm not gonna lie, it'll be a lot, but it's going to lay the foundation for a lot of characters, time periods, and events we're going to encounter not only in this entire series, but also in the current run. I should mention that it will also help lay some foundation for the spin-off series that Greg did with Slave Labor Comics, called Gargoyles the Bad Guys. It's basically the Suicide Squad in the Gargoyles universe. It's a fun series that has to do with some of the villains who appeared throughout the 2 seasons of the show. I'll definitely be covering that. Okay, so in the series of episodes called City of Stone, we saw Demona's life after the massacre of the Gargoyles of Wyvern Castle, the origin of her immortal bond with Macbeth, and the origin of the first hunter. Yes, on the show it's called Wyvern, which is the Scottish pronunciation. There are both English and Scottish pronunciations throughout the show. I'll be going with all English. Now, Demona, called Angel by Goliath then, was one of the people responsible for the Wyvern massacre. She conspired with Robert, the captain of the guard, who made a deal with the Viking leader Hakon to betray Princess Catherine, who was the ruler and lady of Castle Wyvern. She's the daughter of Prince Malcolm, who was the first lord of Wyvern Castle, who we saw in Gargoyles Dark Ages, and he only appears once in the show. Though the Gargoyles defended the castle, Catherine was prejudiced towards the Gargoyles. The reason why Demona made this deal was because she hated this dynamic of her and her kind serving and protecting humans who hated them. She wanted the gargoyles to take over the castle. She and Robert planned to have Goliath take all the gargoyles away to hunt down Hakon's decoy army so the castle could be attacked at night by his actual army. But Goliath only took Hutchison, leaving most of the clan behind. To keep the plan going, Robert told Hakon to attack during the day when the gargoyles would be in their stone forms and helpless, not realizing that Hakon would take advantage of this and massacre them. However, Demona realized the danger, but didn't warn anyone, afraid of revealing her role in the plot. Instead, she ran away and hid. Several years later, after the massacre, Demona had raided a family's stables scavenging for food. She came upon a young boy named Gilcomgain, who was just trying to rid his family stables of any thief. Demona slashed his face with her claws, leaving him permanently scarred and vowing revenge against her and all gargoyles. He became the first hunter, taking on the identity and hunted Demona for years. One of the cool things we're going to learn in this series though, the hunter's mask resembles his facial scars. But he wasn't the one who came up with the idea of the mask. We'll find out it was another character he has close ties to on the show, and that's one of the fascinating things I need to point out that Greg does in this series. He pulls multiple characters who've appeared throughout the show and either expands their lore or ties them to the plot of the story and gives them character growth. Now, Gilcomgain made a name for himself as the Hunter by destroying gargoyles across Scotland. In 1020, he came into the service of Prince Duncan, who was already heir apparent to the Scottish throne at the time. He ordered Gilcomgain to assassinate Macbeth and his father Finlay because he feared they would rise up one day and try to lay claim to the throne. Despite successfully killing Finlay and failing to kill Macbeth due to Demona's interference, Duncan was still happy with the outcome and awarded him Finlay's stewardship of Moray. That's how much of an a-hole Duncan was towards Macbeth. So the same guy I hired to kill your father, I'm going to give him your dad's position and title too. Of course, Macbeth didn't know it was Gilcomgain who killed his father because he used his identity as the Hunter to do so. In 1032, Duncan pulled another a-hole move on Macbeth when he ordered the marriage arrangement of Grigori, Macbeth's childhood friend and love of his life, to Gilcomgain. Around that same time, Duncan had his first son, Canmore. That's when his paranoia crept up again, and he decided to ensure his son's claim to the throne by ordering Gilcomgain to ensure an accident befell Macbeth. But Gilcomgain refused because it would have been too suspicious, and he pointed out that the people loved Macbeth. Duncan threatened him, and Gilcomgain threatened him back, telling him he would reveal to the public he had him assassinate Finlay. To get back at Gilcomgain for defying him, Duncan revealed to Macbeth that the Hunter was Gilcomgain. Macbeth sought out revenge, and during their battle, Demona had interfered, seeking her revenge against Gilcomgain. Together they took him out, but it wasn't an official alliance, it was a short-term alliance that came by happenstance. Demona had only shown up both times at Moray to slay the Hunter because the Weird Sisters, who were tasked by the Archmage with watching over her and Macbeth, had told her. We're not going to get into why the Weird Sisters were doing that because it's another long story that doesn't matter all that much. Just know, the Weird Sisters are avatars of vengeance or fury, and are the Children of Oberon. Now, the Children of Oberon go by many names. The Gargoyles call them the Third Race, the Scots call them the Fair Folk, the Irish call them She, and the Vikings call them the Dark Elves. Within the Gargoyles universe, there are three main races. There are the Gargoyles, humans, and the Children of Oberon. More races do pop up throughout the show, like the Mutates, who we'll get into in the next video, androids, and the New Olympians, who are pretty cool. Now, Oberon is an elf who is the almighty god and king of the Third Race, and the ruler of the island of Avalon. He rules it alongside his wife, Titania, queen of the Third Race. I should clarify a few things. First, he's never outright called a god. I like to think of him as that because the guy's just super OP. Second, he doesn't call himself a king, he prefers the title Lord. Lastly, the Children of Oberon aren't legitimately his children. They're his children in a more metaphorical sense. Though he and Titania are powerful elves, the Third Race consists of way more than just elves. There are fairies, elves, and other otherworldly beings like Banshee, the Lady of the Lake, including gods of mythology like Odin and Anubis. We could say some humans are considered children of Oberon. For example, Merlin, the wizard, is the son of Oberon. Also, Fox, Xanatos' wife, she's Titania's daughter who has magical power. We'll be getting more into that later. Okay, after Gilcomgain's death, Duncan then took the Hunter's mantle. Even though I don't like the guy, he did deliver a badass line when he took the mantle. Speaking to baby Canmore, he said, "There will always be a hunter, my son, and there will always be the hunted." 12 years later, when he finally became King of Scotland, while on a stroll with Macbeth and their sons, he almost fell to his death until Macbeth saved him. It proved to him that Macbeth was truly loyal and didn't seek the throne. When they both came across a cave where Demona and her clan dwelled, initially Duncan was going to destroy them until Macbeth asked him not to, since he and Demona had a history. For Macbeth saving him earlier, Duncan granted his request to let them live. You could say Duncan's paranoia of Macbeth wanting his throne subsided at this point, at least for a time. However, when he and Macbeth encountered the Weird Sisters, it came back firing on all cylinders, because they prophesied that Macbeth would someday be King of Scotland. So Duncan launched his campaign against him. He first attempted to take out Demona's clan while they slept because he didn't want her to aid Macbeth, because as we saw in my Gargoyles Dark Ages video, gargoyles make a huge difference on the battlefield. Luckily for Demona, Duncan attacked them close to sunset, so she awakened before he and his men could destroy her and the rest of the clan. So she made an official alliance with Macbeth. It was a pact and immortal bond made by the Weird Sisters, where they casted a spell that transferred Macbeth's youth to Demona, restoring her to her younger self. Basically, Macbeth became 51, and Demona became the gargoyle version of 35, which was Macbeth's age at the time. This also made them both immortal and unaging, giving them a symbiotic bond, where they feel each other's pain and are drawn together at times even when they don't want to be. The only way they could die is if they killed each other. They defeated Duncan and his army. Instead of slaying Canmore, Macbeth banished him from Scotland. Canmore swore revenge on him and Demona and took the mantle of the Hunter. Macbeth became King of Scotland and was the one who gave Angel the name Demona. Now, how their relationship and alliance fell apart is a story for another time. From that point, every generation of Canmores took on the Hunter's mantle and hunted Demona. In 1980, when Robin, John, and Jason's father, Charles Canmore, was the hunter, they accompanied him to Paris on his hunt of Demona. And this is what happened to him after maybe 5 minutes of them fighting. Yeah, pretty messed up. But that's the reason why the trio of siblings hunted Demona and had a pure hatred for gargoyles in general. I should point out that technically Macbeth wore the mantle as well in the present day when he was hunting her, but he really only wore it as a reminder to her of her betrayal and everything she cost him. That's the entire origin of the Hunter's Mantle, the Canmores, Demona, and Macbeth. Okay, now finally returning to the story. All of these residents that the reporter for Nightwatch News is interviewing are side characters who've appeared once or multiple times throughout the show. First, Sarah Brown, who expresses how she finds the gargoyles terrifying and is afraid for her children. She and her family popped up in the episode where the gargoyles fought the pack. Second is the jogger who came across Elisa and Goliath's statue in Central Park. He wonders what the gargoyles are, wondering if they're dinosaurs or aliens or demons, and suggests capturing and dissecting one to find out. The last resident is Vinny Grigori, who complains about how he lost his job because of the gargoyles and reveals he hunted one of them down and got his revenge. He's a funny character and the most important one of this bunch because he'll be a bit a part of this story. He's making it seem like he took out a gargoyle, but that isn't the case at all. In the episode Vendettas, the entire time Goliath and Hutchison were dealing with Wolf from the pack, alongside his ancestor Hakon, whose spirit possessed a battle axe. Fun fact, the reason why he was possessing a battle axe and not his mace that he used to massacre the gargoyles and was basically his signature weapon was because Greg Weisman didn't realize it until after making the episode. When it comes to the pack, they were a canine-themed group of mercenaries. The team consisted of Wolf, brother and sister Hyena and Jackal, Dingo, and Fox, who led them. They were playing heroes on a television series called The Pack, where they were portrayed as continually doing battle with evil ninjas. Xanatos was the one who assembled this team just to secretly pit them against the Gargoyles. The group turned from TV stars to wanted criminals. Fox left the team and got into a relationship with Xanatos, who had his robotic look-alike Coyote take over and lead the team. In time, the team upgraded themselves in various ways. Wolf was mutated into a sort of werewolf, Jackal and Hyena were given cybernetic implants, and Dingo was given a high-tech suit of armor. He basically became Iron Man. Throughout the Vendettas episode, we learned all the encounters Vinny had with the Manhattan Clan, and how each encounter he had with them cost him his motorcycle along with every job he got. It was like he had the worst kind of luck because everywhere the Gargoyles went, he just so happened to be there. So throughout the episode, he kept trying to take out Goliath using a bazooka, but not in the end of his life kind of way, because by the end of the episode, he successfully fired it off and hit Goliath in the face with a banana pie. That was the revenge he was referring to. What was funny is that after he got his revenge, Goliath was so confused because he didn't know who he was, and Vinny walked off humming the Gargoyles theme song. Now, the news anchor Travis Marshall reports to the citizens of New York that their popular urban myth is real. Gargoyles are living among them. Nightwatch shows the footage of the Manhattan Clan fleeing from the bombing of the clock tower. Next, Travis introduces his guest on the program, Detective Matt Bluestone, the head of the NYPD's new Gargoyle Task Force. Matt Bluestone is a former FBI agent who appeared in the episode Deadly Force and became Elisa's partner. He eventually met and became an ally of the Manhattan Clan in Season 2 in the episode Revelations. In that episode, we learned Matt was kicked out of the FBI because he was obsessed with trying to prove the Illuminati's existence. Matt had met Mace Malone, a 1920s gangster who was a member of the Illuminati and still alive due to rejuvenation drugs that the Illuminati supplied him with. Malone offered to induct Matt into the Illuminati if he turned a gargoyle over to them. Matt pretended to be on his side and eventually turned on him and saved Goliath. Despite him betraying Mace, the Illuminati was so impressed by Matt's perseverance that they still made him a member. He was inducted by Hacker, his former partner in the FBI, who turned out to be another member. I bring this all up because the Illuminati will be playing a major role in this series and the future. Matt here hasn't turned against the Gargoyles, he's just doing his best to cover for them. More on that later. Travis asks him if the Gargoyles are dangerous. Matt answers, there's no evidence to suggest that the Gargoyles are a threat to public safety. He advises that everyone stay calm. Travis then asks if the rumors are true that Xanatos is harboring the Gargoyles atop his castle skyscraper. Matt just answers that all leads are being investigated. Travis reports that Xanatos couldn't be reached for comment. At Castle Wyvern, the Gargoyles and Xanatos finish watching the news program, and Hutchison asks Xanatos what his comment will be once they reach him. The one thing I want to point out here is the energy the Sword of Life is unleashing. Now, Xanatos went from being one of the clan's worst enemies to an official ally after they helped protect his son, Alexander, and save the world. Xanatos pledged to pay the debt back. After they were revealed to the world, he reinstated the Manhattan Clan back to their ancestral home. How the clan saved the world is when they stopped Demona in the final episode from unleashing a plague she had created using a combination of science and sorcery that was combining a virus she had Anton Savarius create and an industrial-strength detergent stolen from Xanatos Enterprises to wipe out humanity, which she dubbed Operation Clean Slate. I'll be talking more about Anton Savarius in the next video because he's a major character in the Gargoyle show. Before that, in the episodes The Gathering Part 1 and 2, they helped Xanatos protect his son from being taken by Oberon, who wanted to take him to please Queen Titania. In those couple of episodes, we learned that Fox's mother was Titania. How that came to be was in her early history, Titania was vain and petty, and like some of the other children of Oberon, displayed considerable scorn towards mortals, viewing them as lesser beings. One of her acts against mortals that hasn't been revealed to us yet angered Oberon so much that he divorced Titania and he banished all of his kind from Avalon until they learned how to have compassion for mortals. That's what part of the series of episodes The Gathering was about. Oberon calling back all of the third race around the world back to Avalon. During the 20th century, Titania began studying science and technology under a human alias, Anastasia. She met and fell in love with a young Halcyon Renard, who would later create the Cyberbiotics Corporation, a rival to Xanatos Enterprises. Titania definitely had learned to respect and have compassion for humanity. She eventually gave birth to her daughter, Janine Renard, aka Fox. She believed Fox had lost her magical potential since she went her entire life with no sign of having magical abilities. So when Fox and Xanatos' child was born, Alexander, she wanted to take her grandson to Avalon so he could be trained in his magical heritage. The whole debacle ended when Goliath persuaded Oberon and Titania to let Alex remain in the outside world, since Fox was able to unleash her halfling magic that was buried deep inside her on Oberon, proving that halflings can develop their magic in the human world. Oberon had appointed the trickster Puck to be Alex's tutor at the Gargoyles' suggestion. The reason why is because Puck for many years had two human aliases, Preston Vogel, Renard's personal aide, and Owen Burnett, Xanatos' personal assistant. That's why both of them looked exactly alike on the show. So he was very close to the family. Also, he was refusing to return to Avalon. That's why the appointment came with a punishment. Oberon decreed him banished forever from Avalon, and also trapped him in the form of Owen Burnett, only able to become Puck when protecting or teaching Alexander. I should mention that Titania did indicate to Fox that this whole situation was a huge ploy to get her to finally bring out her halfling magic. Now, unbeknownst to Xanatos and the Gargoyles, a helicopter circles above the castle. Within it, two people who are armed and looking for any signs of the Gargoyles. This is a new organization that we're going to learn more about called the Quarrymen. They seek the complete eradication of the Gargoyles. They don't stick around long and quickly depart because they mention that they don't want to be late for Castaway's big meeting. We're going to learn more about the Quarrymen and their leader Castaway in a second here. Though Xanatos has made it clear he's on the Gargoyle side, Brooklyn asks Goliath, "Do you really think we can trust Xanatos?" Goliath answers, "I believe we can trust him not to destroy us in our sleep." Which is very true. There were many times Xanatos could have easily destroyed the Gargoyles as they slept when the castle was still their base of operations before they moved to the clock tower. But he chose not to. I think Hutchison's response to Goliath's answer is right on the money, which is that Xanatos would never be so wasteful. I think that's part of the reason why he never chose to destroy them. Also because I do think he has a sense of honor within him and knows that would be a cowardly move. And Xanatos is many things, but a coward isn't one of them. Goliath leaves the castle to go see Elisa. On his way there, this man sees him and whips out his shotgun and starts shooting at Goliath out of his apartment window. This character's name is Artie, and his wife calling out to him, her name is Lois. They were a couple that owned a restaurant that Tony Dracon, the capo of the biggest crime family in New York, blew up when they refused to pay for protection. I'll be talking about him and more about his family in the current Gargoyles run. Goliath grabs his shotgun and makes it clear to him that he is no threat and has nothing to be afraid of. When they come to an understanding, Goliath gives him back his shotgun with the barrel bent into a spiral. Goliath then glides past Vinny, who has come to meet John Castaway. Castaway informs him that he reached out to him because he saw his interview on Night Watch News. So under the impression that Vinny has taken out a gargoyle before and seemingly has a hate for them, Castaway tells him he wants him to join his little group. Goliath reaches Elisa's loft and two scenes unfold here at the same time. One is Goliath going over with Elisa everything he and his clan have gone through to this point and how he feels about it all, and the rise of the Quarrymen. We're going to focus first on Goliath and Elisa's conversation. I should mention that Goliath and Elisa are officially a couple. Throughout the 2 seasons of the show, we were always left wondering if this Beauty and the Beast relationship would come to fruition. At the very end of the last episode of season 2, it did. Elisa tells Goliath it was foolish for him to come to her place because he can't risk being seen right now. But Goliath argues that it will never not be foolish, because when will he and his kind ever feel safe from those who think they shouldn't exist? He goes on to admit that he feels alone because every time he thinks he and the clan arrive at a safe and stable life, it's abruptly torn away. He explains 1,000 years ago, as we already know, they were betrayed with most of their clan massacred, put under a magic spell, and 1,000 years later woke up alive again here in New York, only to have to leave their home because of Xanatos. Then when he thought they had created a new life in the clock tower, that was also abruptly taken away. Even though the clan is now back at their ancestral home under an uneasy truce with Xanatos, they face the challenge of humanity knowing they exist. And Goliath feels like humanity will give them no peace. Elisa does her best to assure him that things will look better after they both get a good night's sleep, and tells him that tomorrow night is her day off and that they'll use the time to make things better. The sun comes up and Goliath turns to stone. Now, back at the Quarrymen's base of operations, Castaway is having a rally of men and women he's invited who feel threatened by the Gargoyles' existence. Castaway is somewhat of a new character. That's all I'll say about him for now. He gives a great speech. He says, "I know that you are all reasonable people, but you do not live in a reasonable world. Violence, racism, injustice. You struggle with the world's problems and wind up feeling so alone. Now, something alien and horrible has entered your world. Gargoyles." He unveils a statue of a gargoyle to them and asks, "Are you afraid of this monster? Are you afraid these creatures will attack you in your sleep?" A few in the crowd respond quietly, yes. Castaway responds, "You are not alone." He asks, "Are you afraid they will steal your children away?" Even more in the crowd answer, yes. Castaway responds, "You are not alone." He asks them, "Do you believe these monsters must be stopped?" The entire crowd answers loudly, yes. Castaway responds again, "You are not alone." He dons a black hood and says, "Join us. Join the Quarrymen." He has 2 crates brought in front of the crowd, one with more black hoods and the other filled with hammers, and tells the crowd to take a hood and a hammer. He says, "You're all Quarrymen now." The crowd goes into a frenzy, everyone grabbing a hood and a hammer. Castaway activates his hammer, which crackles electricity, illuminating the room, and says, "I promise you will never be alone again." He then smashes the gargoyle statue. This is how a cult, a terrorist organization, whatever name you want to give it, is formed. He took what seemed like a reasonable group of normal people and turned them into a group of hate because they fear what they don't understand. Taking advantage of that fear, he successfully created a narrative that painted the gargoyles out to be monsters that the people thought they already were, solely based on their appearance. The next day, we do get an indicator that some citizens in Manhattan are scared of the gargoyles, because we go to the 23rd precinct, which seems to be already under construction. Captain Amira Chavez arrives at the precinct's temporary trailer. She's Elisa's boss, the captain of detectives. She shows up to work after being discharged from the hospital. She got caught in the Hunters' bombing of the clock tower and her leg was broken in the process, so that's why she's on crutches. She asks Bluestone what she missed on the gargoyle front. Matt answers, multiple false alarms and vandalized statues. A lot of people are scared. She then asks about the rumor out there of Xanatos harboring the gargoyles. To which Matt answers by lying that he and Elisa already went to the castle and there was nothing unusual to report. At sunset, Elisa's cat Cagney wakes her up. Above her loft, though, is a black helicopter hovering above, filled with quarrymen. They're the ones who've been going around Manhattan vandalizing statues. They notice Goliath's statue at Elisa's loft, but initially chalk it up to just it being another regular statue. When they inform Castaway over comms, he tells them to not take chances, to destroy it, and that he's going to join them soon with backup. Before Castaway leaves, Vinny approaches, informing him someone else saw his interview on Night Watch News and offered him a security job in Japan. More on that in Gargoyles the Bad Guys. Castaway responds by telling him about the sighting of the statue, requesting he tag along since he's hunted a gargoyle before. That's when Vinny finally reveals the truth that he did hunt down a gargoyle, but when he caught it, all he did was hit it with a banana pie. He also admits to Castaway that he thinks his path is unnecessary, to which Castaway responds by telling Vinny to come with him and he'll see how necessary it is. Back at Elisa's loft, she sees one of the quarrymen drop from the chopper above, ready to smash Goliath. This is why I say Elisa's no damsel in distress. She immediately tackles the guy and lays the 1-2 on him. However, when the quarryman catches one of Elisa's punches, he gloats at how this confirms to him that the statue is a real gargoyle, and how he's going to enjoy smashing it. This pisses Elisa off. She trips him and puts him down. She tries to grab his hammer until a female quarryman drops in and threatens to shoot her if she does. The male quarryman begins to recover, and his female companion tells him to finish the job. But at that moment, the sun sets, and Goliath awakens. He dodges the male quarryman's attack, thanks to Elisa's warning, and slams into the guy and takes him down and his partner. The pilot of the chopper above begins raining down lasers on Goliath and Elisa. Goliath, carrying Elisa, launches off the rooftop and starts gliding through the city while the chopper chases him, firing lasers. Eventually, the pilot of the chopper meets his mark and successfully hits one of Goliath's wings. This is nuts because this is the first time we see any of the gargoyles take major damage like this. Goliath falls from the sky and he and Elisa luckily land on a rooftop, seemingly unconscious. Now we're going to transition from that craziness to Hutchison at Wyvern Castle, doing what he loves, which is watching TV, and coming across the Night Watch News program, having a live debate on what they're calling the gargoyle problem. The two debating that news anchor Travis Marshall introduces is Macbeth, using his modern day alias Lennox Macduff, who's presented as a medieval scholar and author of the book Gargoyles in Celtic Legend. So it seems that Macbeth has fully become a part of modern day society. And I mean that in a public eye sense, and has become a defender of the gargoyles, arguing for approaching the gargoyles with tolerance. The other person introduced is Assistant District Attorney Margot Yale, who is the advisor to the NYPD's Gargoyle Task Force. She and her husband Brandon have encounters with the gargoyles multiple times on the show. Despite her and her husband witnessing being saved by the gargoyles twice, that hasn't changed her opinion about them. She's here arguing that the gargoyles are nothing but monsters who are the most dangerous creatures on Earth. Macbeth responds saying the gargoyles are not a threat to us unless we make ourselves a danger to them. Margot replies, "We can only be sure of that after they've all been apprehended. We can't take any chances. Our children are not safe. In captivity, they can be studied, protected, and fed." Macbeth replies, "All the comforts as long as they don't value their freedom." Margot's response to that is weird. She scoffs at his reply and says, surely Mr. Macduff isn't going to pretend that these creatures have human thoughts and emotions. They're beasts, animals. The reason why this is weird is the fact that she knows they can talk when she's spoken to them, and even witnessed Goliath hugging Elisa. So obviously they're capable of human thoughts and emotions. I can only assume that Greg forgot about that. From here we go to Bronx and Lexington playing with baby Alexander Xanatos. Now I'm telling you all right now, I think Greg Weisman is going to make Alexander the most powerful, or one of the most powerful characters in the Gargoyles universe. He's going to be the Franklin Richards of this universe. If they both meet in the Fantastic Four and Gargoyles crossover coming in November, that would be cool. Just like how Franklin as a child was creating pocket universes, baby Alexander achieved a powerful feat just as a baby. Granted, it's not the same level as Franklin creating universes. In the episode Possession, Puck taught Alexander the soul transference spell. Alexander possessed Lexington's body so he could use his mouth and voice box to utter the spell and transfer Lago's spirit out of Brooklyn and into his android body Coldsteel, and Desdemona's spirit out of Angela into her android body Coldfire. Both androids were created by Xanatos. Also, Alexander transferred Othello's spirit out of Brooklyn and back into his cyborg body Coldstone. All three of these spirits were originally housed in Coldstone's body, which was created by Xanatos and Demona using a combination of science and sorcery, and the three spirits shattered stone remains of their bodies that were left from the Wyvern Massacre. We'll talk more about them and their drama in a future video. It's because of that whole ordeal that Lexington and Alexander have established a rapport and a relationship. What's funny here is when Fox says to Lexington he's great with Alexander, he just looks at her like he couldn't care less about her opinion and responds, "Yeah, that means a lot from you." The reason why he's acting like this towards her is because in the episode The Thrill of the Hunt, where she and the pack were introduced, Lexington, out of all the members of the Manhattan Clan, was the biggest fan of the show and their team. He went to them believing they were the real-life heroes they played on the show. The pack was made aware of the Gargoyles' existence through Xanatos' manipulation behind the scenes, and wanted to challenge themselves by hunting them. So when Lexington approached them, they pretended to want to have a friendship with him and the Manhattan Clan, to manipulate him into luring himself and Goliath into a trap. Lexington was so hurt by their betrayal that it birthed his permanent beef with them. However, when Fox suggests that despite their past dealings they start over since they live together and are essentially allies now, Lexington responds that he's willing to let it go and try for Alexander's sake, since he's formed a bond with him. Elsewhere in the castle, we go to Broadway and Angela. Broadway is doing his reading lesson. That's one of the interesting things we learned in season 2, was despite Goliath knowing how to read, none of the other members of the Manhattan Clan could. So it became a new thing they added to their lives in order to educate themselves and learn more about the modern world and all of its history they missed. The new thing we see here that definitely wasn't a thing by the end of the show, or wasn't even hinted at or built up to, is that Broadway and Angela are a couple. For those of you unaware, Angela is Goliath's and Demona's daughter. I plan on explaining how she came to be part of the Manhattan Clan in a future video. This is something that truly came out of nowhere, but I have a theory that might explain how this came to be. In that episode, Possession, I mentioned earlier, Othello and Desdemona, who are mates, spirits were transferred into Broadway and Angela's body. I think the intimate moments the two lovers shared while in their bodies influenced Broadway and Angela's coming together. Now, Brooklyn is sad to see them together, because in the episode Turf, he, Lexington, and Broadway were trying to impress Angela, trying to court her. But all it did was consistently cause problems. She basically told them to chill out and that she liked all three of them, but if anything was going to happen between her and any of them, it would happen in its own time. So that's why he feels that way. Now, finally returning to Goliath and Elisa, they regain consciousness and Elisa uses cloth from her dress to bandage Goliath's injured wing. The Quarrymen's chopper is still searching the city for them. Since he can't glide, Goliath decides to traverse the rooftops in order to make it to the castle. Elisa insists on going with him. They eventually come across the destroyed clock tower. At that moment, the chopper finds them and immediately fires on them. Goliath leaps into the clock tower for cover. On the ground, a black van arrives at the precinct. It's Castaway and a group of his quarrymen, ordering them to not let the creature escape. When Vinny mentions that he's still not sure about this, Castaway responds for him to don the hood and says the Quarryman way is the only way. They infiltrate the building, and they don't realize Goliath isn't trapped in the building with them. They're trapped in there with him. He and Elisa take out a team on the ground level. Then they surprise a team in the clock tower. Goliath makes them understand they're no match for gargoyles, which makes sense because we're talking about civilians with more than likely no combat experience or training, and at the end of the day, they're afraid of gargoyles. Unfortunately, Castaway gets the drop on Goliath and Elisa, electrocuting them with his hammer. He tells Vinny to hold Elisa while he finishes off Goliath. Just when Vinny is about to call him by his last name, Castaway tells him not to use names, because quarrymen must remain anonymous. Goliath dodges his initial attack, but Castaway lands a blow on him, nearly knocking him out of an opening in the building. Goliath holds on to the opening for dear life while Castaway electrocutes him. Vinny interrupts, saying, "I think he's learned his lesson." Castaway replies, "This is war, Vinny. I don't teach lessons, and I don't take prisoners." This shocks Vinny, so he asks what they're going to do with Elisa. Castaway makes it clear that she's with the gargoyles, so she'll share their fate. That's when Vinny realizes he's going to kill both of them, and refuses to be a part of it. Castaway calls him a traitor and attacks Vinny. He knocks him back by electrocuting him. Just when he pulls his gun and is about to shoot Vinny, that's when Goliath recovers and takes his gun. Castaway says, "I won't be defeated by the likes of you." And Goliath replies, "Brave words for a man who hides his face behind a hood." This enrages Castaway and he charges at Goliath, who jumps over his head. It initially seems like Castaway fell out of the building until the Quarrymen helicopter rises with Castaway on its rope ladder. He tells Goliath to dream of him as the chopper flies away. Afterwards, Goliath thanks Vinny for his help, and Vinny responds that he hopes that it makes up for any emotional trauma he may have left him from the banana pie incident. Vinny tells Goliath that he has to be more careful because he won't be there next time to save him since he's taken a new job in Japan. Goliath smiles and responds that they'll have to manage without him then. Vinny leaves, and what's funny is Elisa asks Goliath who that guy was, and Goliath basically answers that he doesn't remember him, yet again. Elisa then asks if they should have told Vinny that there are gargoyles in Japan. Goliath answers that he'll find out about that for himself. As the two of them look over the city towards the castle, Goliath's outlook on everything that's happened to him and the clan changes, because this whole ordeal makes him realize that this is what life is all about. It's about the journey. He says, "I have been frustrated waiting for my clan to arrive at some final destination. But life is about the discoveries made on the journey itself. And though the road has been hard, I have no regrets about the path we have chosen." Elisa replies, "Funny, I feel the exact same way." This is the end of the opening to Gargoyles Season 3. Now, here are a few tidbits of what's to come. Goliath's son, the evil Thalog, returns to wreak havoc. We see more of the Illuminati. We learn the entire history of the Stone of Destiny, the same stone King Arthur drew Excalibur from, and Brooklyn time travels. Well, I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you made it to the end, I greatly appreciate it. This video took me forever to work on. I hope you all have an awesome day. Take care, and always remember every day to go beyond.